listening to the Project Ignite podcast,
where real digital entrepreneurs reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies to help you ignite and grow your online business.
ProjectIgnite.com. Your digital business starts here.
Now, here's your host, Derek Gale.
Welcome to another episode of the Project Ignite podcast. Just designed to give you guys real stuff you can use in your businesses. No BS, no hype, actionable strategies to help grow your online business. This is your host, Derek Gale. And today we're going to be talking about something that I realized out of 100 some odd episodes, I've never actually talked about this. And I don't know why, because it has played a role in my own businesses and marketing for, God, going on 20 years. And that is pay-per-click marketing, which obviously today is very heavily focused around Google and Google Adwords, but pay-per-click. And today's guest to help me along this journey, and our expert, is a digital marketer who's used pay-per-click to generate millions of dollars in revenue for tech giants, global brands like Fiverr and Outbrain over the past decade. He has his own agency called Media Flows, which is an e-commerce ad agency that works with fast-growing online brands that are scaling using pay-per-click methodologies for audience building, creative management, optimization, automation, and more. And this guest also happens to be my first guest, I think, from Israel. And, you know, again, I don't know why it's my first guest from Israel, because I was just saying before we start, there are so many amazing and smart companies and entrepreneurs and digital marketers coming out of Israel. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Guy Rozman to the show. Guy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Derek. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And okay. So, you know, it's funny when I was looking at, so Fiverr is from Israel.
Yes.
It's funny. Most people
Yes.
here do not realize that, right? They have no idea. Outbrain, is Outbrain based in Israel as well?
Yes.
See, I didn't know that either. God, see, there's so many.
And I can tell you that Taboola as well is the biggest rival of Outbrain. So it's also based in Israel.
Well, damn it. I had no idea. I mean, I've used those networks, but I end up dealing with the reps here or their US or whatever. But yeah, there's so much amazing stuff coming out of a relatively small country. So you guys are doing something right there. What is it?
Wow, it's a good question. There's a lot of books written about it, I guess, but there is a very strong startup scene here in Israel. A lot of people are coding, and a lot of programmers coming from Israel. But I think, you know, maybe the number one reason is really the attitude and the entrepreneurial spirit that is in Israel, because Israel as itself is like a entrepreneurial project as itself, combining, you know, people from all over the world and creating a new state. And I think this is like the vibes here in Israel. Like everybody is thinking about doing it, and everybody has he's brave enough to try and do some big stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works out, you know, and one success leads to another success, and there's a very interesting ecosystem here. So there you go. A lot of very interesting companies that come out of Israel, and part of it is through digital marketing. So a lot of these companies rely on digital marketing heavily. So there's a lot of digital marketers that coming in from Israel, and a lot of affiliate marketers and so forth.
Yeah, I see that with our affiliate network, sellhealth.com. I see lots of, some great affiliates come out of Israel, and creative, smart dudes and gals that are just doing amazing stuff. I got to do some more research into it, because there's something there. I mean, obviously you've got the education, you've got the coding, you've got that talent, but there is, that in and of itself. I mean, there's lots of countries that have that, but then they don't create these amazing startups so anyway, as I said to you before we started recording, I'm looking forward to getting over there. I was supposed to be there in 2020. And well, nobody went anywhere in 2020. So
Yes, yes.
2022
We were
probably.
Yeah, we were locked up as well as the rest of the
Yeah.
world. Now it's starting to get better, so hopefully next year is going to be business as usual, for all of us. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, look, my perception has been in, things I've read about it is it sounds like fairly structured, fairly well organized as a country. Is that pretty true? Like the government runs things pretty tightly and well?
Well, it depends. It depends really who you ask. There's a lot of opinions.
Sure.
There's actually a lot of politically, it's not very stable right now, but generally speaking, I think, yes, it is managed. And in the end of the day, like maybe we got lucky, maybe it was good planning, maybe it was, I don't know, just good deal that the government did. But in the end of the day, right now, it's a good situation. It wasn't always like this. Like we suffered and we was in lockdown and a lot of people got hurt.
Yeah.
But right now, things are looking good and hopefully it will stay. We never know, right? So
yeah.
This is the situation right now.
Whatever it is, keep doing what you're doing because it's working.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's awesome. Okay, well, look, let's get into you first. How did you become the PPC expert with your own agency? Share your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a long journey. I started out like more than 10 years ago. I think it was like 2009.
Yep.
And I just stumbled upon a course on digital marketing. And it was the topic was how to build a blog and make money with AdSense. Okay. The AdSense ad, right? Like the little display ad that Google shows in all the website. It's still going on today, right? Back then it was like a new concept for me and I really wanted to get into it. And my first step was actually with affiliate marketing and with promoting offers. And after building my first blog that didn't take off, I realized that, hey, there's this a tool called Google Adwords. Mm-hmm. You can pay money, get traffic, get clicks. And if you can sell something, so you can really make good money, right? Like if the ROI is positive, so you can grow it and do whatever you want. It didn't work out that well for me because I didn't make a lot of money from affiliate marketing, but I did fall in love in the concept and in PPC. And I just started to work in an agency as a junior PPC manager. Back in the day, it was all Google Adwords. We did a lot of campaigns for big companies here in Israel. A lot of keywords, a lot of ads, a lot of sophisticated method that we developed back in the day that it was harder, right? Like it was harder to reach good scales in Google. You need to know what you're doing. You need to build like gigantic lists of keywords. And we progressed, and while the industry grew, we grew as well, and we added Facebook as another channel that we can buy traffic on, and then we added the Outbrain and the Tabula, and LinkedIn came along and Twitter. So it really got big, and we got to work with a lot of the global companies that coming out of Israel, like Outbrain and like other companies that was later sold for huge enterprises around the world. Mm-hmm. and me building the team and managing the PPC and the PPC manager, so I got to learn a lot about doing the work, like doing the advertising on Google and on Facebook, and also manage a team of PPC campaign managers. And from that, after a few years, I went over to working in the startups scene. So I had a few years at Fiverr doing some user acquisition there. And then another couple of years at Yotpo, which is also a very interesting company that actually created a tool for e-commerce marketer to generate user-generated content. So I also did user acquisition and demand generation over there. And after a few years, I realized that, hey, like e-commerce is is the thing, right? Like it's growing, it's getting
Sure.
big. And as a PPC marketer, B2C and e-commerce, like it's a lot of fun, big budgets, ROI is much faster than B2B companies that, it's very hard to track the result and success.
Yeah.
So I decided that when I go out and start getting my own clients, I want to be very focused on the e-commerce and on the B2C.
Mm-hmm.
And working, with entrepreneurs that have a brand, that are sometimes, they do it, the pay-per-click by themselves, sometimes they pay an agency. They still didn't figure it out. And I come and I really help them, to figure it out, understand how to do it properly, and then grow their business, in a very significant way.
Okay, good. And so, so today you have your own agency and you're primarily focused on pay-per-click.
Yeah, I would say like only pay-per-click for me right now, because I really want to focus on the service that is, I think the companies that I work with, at this stage, the user acquisition or the customer acquisition, this is like their main concern right now, right? It's like they have a product, they have some sort of logistics around it. They just need to get a decent amount of customer, and they need to grow it.
Yeah.
And they need to do it in a reasonable ROI, so they can continue to grow. And I think this is like the crucial step for them in order to scale. And then there's a lot of other elements that come into play, right? Like customer retention and good customer service. But this is first, you need to get the customers, right? Like you have to do it.
And that I think is the biggest mystery for most people. Like, I see so many entrepreneurs come into this and they get into being an entrepreneur because they have a great idea, right? They build said idea, they create an amazing idea, and all of this stuff, like, building a good product and setting up a website, all that they can do. It's the getting the eyeballs, and not only getting the eyeballs, but getting the eyeballs in such a way that they're making money off that and not losing their shirt, right? And so, look, okay, so let's talk about kind of the state of pay-per-click. And I guess, we'll really focus heavily on AdWords here because, as we were talking just before we started recording, I remember the very first pay-per-click search engine was goto.com. And
wow, before my time.
Yeah, so that would have been in 98, 99, goto.com. And in its earliest form, it was truly pay-per-click. Like there was no organic. You could go there and whoever bid the most for a keyword would come up number one. Like it was traditional auction. Then they eventually became Overture, and then Yahoo bought Overture, and Overture became Yahoo Search Marketing, right? Which became their Yahoo, which is now part of MSN and all that crap, right? And then Google AdWords came along, and my God, it was a gold rush back in those days when they first came up with that, because the clicks were so damn cheap. And we were sort of early adopters of stuff like that, as most small businesses are. And so, we early adopted, and it was amazing. I remember getting clicks for, 10 cents, 15 cents, like stupidly cheap clicks. Obviously that evolved and that changed. And, as Google grew and AdWords grew and became the billion-dollar behemoth that it is today, they really changed their focus. And as much as they say they're there for the small businesses, I mean, let's face it, their business model is better having fewer advertisers spending a hell of a lot more than a whole bunch of advertisers spending just a little bit. I mean, obviously, they're more profitable that way. So they got really difficult to deal with, and they were horrible to deal with. And then Facebook came along, and then, I really saw an exodus of people that were kind of disenchanted with Google sort of switch back to Facebook. And as that marketing platform's grown, it's done really well. And I've been disenchanted with Google many times. I mean, I think anybody that's been in this business for any length of time, you've got a few burnt Google accounts under your belt. It'll never be reopened, and they were terrible, but they've gotten better. Like, I feel like they've shifted back now, and they're like, okay, there is some competition out there. We do need to be more reasonable and actually support our advertisers and answer their questions and maybe give them a appeal process and stuff like that. But it's still pretty damn competitive,
Yeah, for sure.
How would you say today, what is the state of AdWords? Where do we exist today?
So first of all, I think you're definitely right when you say it's competitive. Okay, it's very hard to succeed in Google AdWords nowadays. I don't think it's getting easy or easier. It's actually getting harder. And this is why I think you really need to know what you're doing and don't make mistakes, because still it's very easy to make mistakes if you're not familiar with all the ins and outs of the interface. Because Google AdWords, I wouldn't say it was easy or simple like back in the day.
Yeah,
and it's definitely not easy and simple right now.
Yes.
And there's a lot of machine learning and AI running in the background, right? And supposed to help you get the results that you need. But more often than not, you really need to break down all the activities that you're doing and really be in the details. Like you can't just, upload a few keywords you come up with, or you do some keyword research and you come up with a few keywords, write some ad, and there you go. It doesn't work like that. Okay, you need to really pay attention to which keyword you choose, what is the match type, because what I see still now, and also 10 years ago, is that people use, a lot of different match types, like broad match types, and they don't realize that they actually triggering a lot of search terms that are not always relevant to the actual search term that they want to bid on. And they need to monitor it. And I see it still now when I get, accounts from companies and I need to audit, the account. This is the first thing I look, because a lot of people spend money and pay good dollars. And it's not a few cents, right? It's like a few dollars per click right now. And they spend it on the wrong keywords.
Yeah.
Or I would say the wrong search terms. Like they think they're getting one thing, but they're actually getting another thing.
And this is where I think Google's interface is set up specifically to hide the actual terms that are, because I see it, we set these terms and it's going to say, this drove this drove this. But when you go and actually look at the real search terms, which is somewhere else, that's where you find all this obscure stuff that most people never negative, because they don't even know it's there.
I don't know if it's like, I assume good intentions, right? Like I assume Google wants you to succeed. Because...
I quit assuming that about Google years ago.
No? Okay.
When your mission statement is "Don't be evil," that
it's problematic. Like you're using some crazy terminology. Yeah, for sure. But again, like this is something I see all the time. So maybe you're right. Like maybe this is just their sneaky way, to make the money. But for me, it's kind of sad, like to see this, and then a business owner would say, okay, Google doesn't work for me. But if you don't understand all the terminology and really know what you're doing, so yes, you can easily set up the campaign. You're very easy to get all the keywords in and to get the ads and start running. But you need really to focus on the details.
Yeah.
So this is one component, and I think that really, just to summarize it, to be successful in Google AdWords and also in other platforms, first you need to be a marketer, right? Like you need to get the basics of marketing. So if it's on Google, so who is my audience and what they need, what they want, what are they searching for? If my product is something that's I don't know, if it's a necklace, right? It's I love you necklace, like one of my customers.
Mhm.
If someone is searching for I love you necklace, that's great. Like I know I can offer him my
Mhm.
product, like no problem. But if they're searching for something like anniversary gift for the wife,
Yeah.
so maybe I can pitch, my product, but then I'm going to compete with every other gift idea in the world, right?
Yeah.
So obviously I'm going to pay extra because there's be more competition around that term,
Mhm.
and my conversion rate is going to go down, because if you're looking for like a random gift ideas, and if you're looking for a specific I love you necklace, so it's going to be different,
Yeah.
right? And if I have a certain budget, so I need to be smart. Like I need to say, okay, I want to go for the highest intent keywords first. Let's
Mhm.
cover this base, and only then let's think about the anniversary and the gift ideas and the birthdays and all the
Yeah.
others potential keywords that I can target.
Yeah, it's funny you're talking about this. I literally just recorded a video for my YouTube channel. It's not even posted yet, but it'll be posted soon, and it's on keyword types, because exactly what you're talking about. You've got the three buckets: navigational, which don't really
Yeah.
apply to us; information; and transactional. Right? When
Mhm.
somebody's searching for an actual product type, I want to buy a I love you
Yeah.
necklace. That's transactional,
Mhm.
right? High
Yeah.
commercial value. But, to that point, the informational ones like best anniversary gift, uh, my experience has been I have never seen a positive ROAS, return on ad spend, firing that kind of traffic at a specific product. I've always got to take them through information first,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a pre-sell. I mean, have you ever seen an informational search be a positive return on ad spend straight to product?
Yeah. So as a like performance marketer and direct response marketer, we
Yes.
always try to get people to the product,
Sure.
even if it's a broader term,
Mhm.
because getting them through the information, it's another click, right? Like, this is like how we see it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you're definitely right. Like if I want an anniversary gift, so educate me a little bit. Like what is important? What is the price range? What are my options, right? So it
Mhm.
definitely makes sense. And I have actually like an example, maybe from another niche that I used to be at, that we used to sell a course for a particular test. It's like a test prep course,
Yeah.
and we figured out that if we bought, it was the GMAT, right? Like when you go to MBA, you need to do the GMAT.
Yeah.
And if you were searching for GMAT test or GMAT prep even, so we had one asset, which was, our course. Come sign up for the course, get a free trial, and start doing it. And we had another asset, which was actually an affiliate of ours, and he did comparison, like it's a comparison site.
Yeah.
And we were there, and all our competition were there, but he ranked in a certain way that he saw fit, and gave a lot of information about the course, about why you wanted to choose this course and why you want to choose that course. And I can tell you that the conversion rates for people who came through that funnel was 5x.
Yeah.
Okay, the conversion rate, because they went through that comparison,
Yeah.
and they got educated, and when they got to our course, they were ready to buy.
Yes. Yes.
So in this situation, it definitely was worthwhile getting them into a longer funnel.
And just, for anybody that's listening that's an affiliate, I think that's an important message there. In the world of affiliate marketing, if you want to use AdWords, you're going to primarily exist in the informational keyword space. Even if they're searching brand stuff, it's going to be looking for information about our brand, and that's where you're inserting yourself, right? So for the
Yeah.
affiliate marketers listening, that's an important thing to understand, right? So so I mean, and this is kind of where I was going. It's like the informational, you've got to have more of a funnel in there, right? They're not just like, frick, I want to buy.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about the kind of businesses that are having success with it right now. because you've got a significant cost for a click now, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
depending on the niche and the competition that exists there, that is going to vary. But you deal with ecom. Now, what kind of ecom companies are you seeing with success? Because if somebody has a single product that they're selling that, has, it's a $30, $40 product, that's the only thing they're selling, they're making $10 on it. Are they ever going to make a positive return on ad spend or ROAS with AdWords?
So I think it depends. Like, first of all, to be successful, your products need to be really, really good and unique. Like this is one type of e-commerce that I see successful, and this is also the type of companies that I work with. They usually don't have like a range of a lot of products.
Yeah.
But maybe they do, but they have this one product or maybe two products that are like the best sellers, right? Like one of the companies I work with is also in the jewelry space, and they actually offer a customized jewelry. So you can actually pick a place in the world, and then they will create a customized jewelry based on the map coordinates of that specific place.
Yeah.
So this, for example, is like a very special product. It's not just a random jewelry. It's not like a drop shipping site that you got nice jewelry and you try to flip them. And like on AdWords, there's like the thing is that they have a very good ROI, but the search volume is not very high, right?
Yeah. Because
not a lot of people are looking for a map jewelry.
Yeah.
But whoever is looking for a map jewelry, they're probably gonna sell to him, right?
Yeah.
But if someone is looking for just a jewelry or customized jewelry, they don't stand a chance because it's like all of the world is gonna compete there. So I think you really need to think about how you can differentiate your product in a very special way and to attract a very a specific type of audience. Because again, if you're going to...
Sorry, the word attract though, because I mean, this is the interesting part of AdWords is it's not a Facebook where we can push our ads. We have to rely on search. There has to be search volume too.
Yeah, for sure. So for this particular example, so like, for example, this kind of product, you can't rely on Google. This is correct, because if you will rely on Google, you can never scale.
Yes.
So the scale that we do is driven mostly by Facebook. But then again, we create this demand for the product by investing in Facebook.
In Facebook, yeah.
So people are searching for the brand name and for the map jewelry, because otherwise, like, how would they look for it?
How would they know? Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody, like, this is the only platform that we use to advertise the brand. So all the brand search that we get, and we get a lot, is directly coming from people who saw us on Facebook and Instagram.
So
it's all connected.
Yeah, and we're gonna go to, because this is a rabbit hole I want to go down and talk about.
Yeah.
Sort of cross-channel attribution and stuff like that, because I think this is a very important conversation that needs to be had, and I've been sort of ringing this bell for a few years now. So we're gonna get into that, but before we do, actually, the one thing I wanted to cover with you today is, when you set up a Google campaign, you have so many ways you can set it up, right? You can set it up for, optimize it for clicks, optimize it conversions. You can optimize it for impressions. You can set a target ROAS and let it do its thing. And look, I'll tell you what my experience has been, because I'd love to get your feedback on this. Like, we'll set up a campaign and we'll run it with, target it for clicks initially. Once it's got enough traction and it's learned well enough, we'll switch it to, target a ROAS, let it just go out and find customers, right? once in a while, that'll kick ass, right? Other times it won't. Sometimes it'll be kicking ass for a long time and then it stops. And then we have to literally switch it back, almost reset throw it on to, go back to CPM or CPC, let it run and, target specific keywords and then let it learn and then turn it back on. Like the AI is there, but it's not consistent and it's not always the same or reliable. I mean, what's your experience right now? What's your take on this?
Yeah. So actually, like the process that you described is still the good process to go. Like you definitely need to start, in my opinion, right, with the manual CPC and really to control the clicks and there's a game here. Like how much do you control and how much do you let the algorithm control? Sure. And when you're starting out, when it's just a new activity, you have to be more in control and you have to have a more granular data, right? So it's best to really control the bids and understand like how much you should bid, how much you should pay for the clicks. And also, very important thing to know is that if you just switch conversion from the beginning, like Google don't have any history or any data to rely on. So it may take him a lot of time and you spending a lot of money to get to a point where it's optimized. So I think that now, as it was in the past, the best practice would be to start with a manual bids. Yeah. And then after you accumulate enough conversion, enough history, then you can go to conversion optimizer and look, if you're not going to make a lot of changes and if the search volume is steady, you should be fine. But things can happen, new competitors can start bidding on your keywords. Search volume goes up and it can also go down. Sometimes there's a new trend, there's new keywords that you need to cover. So you all the time need to expand the keywords coverage, right? And you need to narrow down the irrelevant search terms that are creeping in from similar searches. You always need to do it. And although again, even though Google is improved during the years, I still to this day, if you're using broad match, which is let Google
that's just so that's how you lose money. That's been my experience.
Yeah. If you don't control it, if you don't understand why using it, there are ways and situation you should use it, but you need to understand the why. You want to use it when you want to broaden your keyword coverage, when you want to discover new keywords, but you need to understand the risk and you need to mitigate it, right? Like with adding negatives.
Yeah. Okay. So when starting a campaign, so I think this is a trap a lot of people fall into is they start up their campaign. They say exact match these keywords and they run it for a very short period of time and they're like, oh, it worked or it didn't work, and they move on, right? My experience now doing this for a while has been that when we start a campaign, we will, for example, I typically don't use broad, but I'm going to use a phrase match, right? I'll throw a phrase match in there and I'll set a budget and I'll let it go. And the first month plus is about seeing, because when you phrase match, you're going to get a ton of variations, right? And then it's a case of figuring out, okay, which ones are just costing money versus which ones aren't, because then you got to go into search terms and then you start negativing and then start refining from there. How do you approach it?
So the way I build the campaign usually is a structure that I use broad modifiers, because I do want to get I'm starting with the keyword research, right? I'm trying to figure out what people would want, what people would search for. And then I use it in broad modifier in order to learn and to find new keyword opportunities that I didn't think about when I did the keyword research, because I can't think of all the variation and all the possibilities. So a lot of the time you find really interesting opportunities and then you can build on from there. But I also do exact match, because if it's keywords that I know like they're high intent, I want to bid on them and I want to be very competitive there. And the process from there is all the time like refinement. So if I found good opportunities, I would add them as the exact, bid there. And if I find search terms that are not aligned and they're not relevant, so I would just remove them, put them on negative. And another thing is that, usually sometimes it's a matter of budget. Like in the e-commerce, mostly it's a ROAS game, right? Like if you can produce good ROAS, you would put more money, because you see very fast returns. In other cases, if you have a budget, so you need also to be clever in utilizing this budget in the right way, right? Like go for the highest converting keywords and remove all the high CPL or high CPA keywords just in order to optimize like the costs, right? So this is like a very easy thing to do, but you need to go over it like on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, and make sure that your account is like optimized for the best keywords that produce the best results.
Yes.
And in the long run, you can scale it up like this.
Yeah. And I think I used to take the approach of, add an exact match, see what it does, add this, but then I figured out it's easier to scale faster by throwing in, the more general, right? And then figuring out what's working. But I think the message for the listeners to take away here is to truly, I think, scale these faster, you need to be prepared to spend some money to test a whole bunch of stuff and then to cut it out over time and not expect a positive ROAS. In some cases, it's going to be, I don't know about you, but it's taken a month, 2 months to really get it refined.
I can tell you that it's very hard, I think, for business owners, especially.
Yeah.
And also for marketers, that are marketing managers. But again, for business owners, like it's very hard to put that money and to invest that money in a platform because they want the fast returns, right? Like nobody wants to invest thousands of dollars in something that you think that might work. So everybody expects the fast returns. And you know what? Sometimes it happens. Sometimes if you do a very good planning and your product is very good and it's not that competitive, it can happen. But sometimes it's very hard, especially, I used to run a lot of B2B lead generation campaigns on Google.
Yeah.
Freaking hard, because the CPCs are crazy. It's like $10 per click, right? So you're not gonna. So you start with a whatever budget. You're not gonna bring so many leads that you can evaluate the quality of the leads.
Yeah.
So you really need to spend a lot in order to figure out which keywords are producing good leads and which keywords are producing not so good leads, and to optimize. So it's really a process that can take time. And I agree. Like you really need to go into it with a mindset that you are investing right now, and sometimes also this is something that's not discussed a lot, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you try and you do your best.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just and sometimes AdWords just if there is no real demand for the product, it's going to be very hard.
Yep, absolutely. Or if there's a lot of competition and you don't have any unique positioning against said competition or whatever. Yeah, 100%. One of the things that, I think the listeners need to take into consideration here as well is in any paid media marketplace where you're competing against other businesses for that placement in an auction-based format, at the end of the day, whatever business can afford to spend the most to acquire a customer will always dominate in that space. And I think
so true.
This is something that a lot of them don't realize. And like for me in our health businesses and supplement businesses and stuff, I'm able to spend so much more than our competitors because I don't focus on, frankly, a positive ROAS on that first sale, right? I'll even lose money on that first sale. Why? Because I have a whole suite of products on the back end. And And, when you get into marketplaces that are competitive now, like Facebook and Google, you got to have some LTV there, right? You need to have a lifetime value and not expect that positive ROAS. Now, the one thing that, here's the thing that I think is the most challenging today, and that is attribution in terms of how do you credit a channel these days? Because
Yeah.
again, back in the early days of pay-per-click, it was dead easy, right? Like, and even buying behavior was simpler back then, right? Like people clicked and they bought
Yeah.
more, right? Like last click attribution was meaningful. But today, it's very multi-channel. And you said something earlier that we're going to go back to now, and that was you were running social campaigns. And that's where you're spending your money. And your pay-per-click was effectively just catching the brand search that was being driven out of those social campaigns, right? And so, so this is the kicker, I think, for a lot of people is how do you measure the real impact, whether it be social, whether it be pay-per-click, whether it be affiliate, whether it be any of these. How do you measure that impact? And more, and particularly, it's funny. I spoke at a mastermind group here in Vancouver, a little conference, and it was a bunch of agency owners. And this was going back a couple of years. And I said, I think one of the hardest things you guys have to do now is to be able to communicate the value of what you do to your clients, because uneducated clients are like, well, you drove 100 clicks and I wasn't profitable.
Yeah.
But there's a bigger picture here. And when you're only handling one piece of the marketing puzzle, for example, pay-per-click, how do you communicate that? How do you place a value on it when the direct ROAS may be negative, but overall it's playing a role? How are you handling this?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So first of all, it still is complicated. Like I think that most businesses, while they think about attribution and talk about it, it's very hard to measure it correctly.
Yes.
And I think what we usually do is we try to look at it from a few angles, right? So there is the first, an immediate angle, that is the ad platform. So if we're running Facebook or Google Ads, we would track it, with the pixels, and we would get the data there, and we will definitely make decisions on the campaign based on the data, because even afterward, if we're going to analyze the attribution and we're going to choose a different attribution model, if that specific ad generated a click that in the end of the day generated a purchase, so I still want to optimize it, and I still want to give him the credit, right? So this is on the one hand. But on the other hand, like you said, like sometimes, this is the reality, right? We use multi devices, and we use Google, and we use Facebook, and we use all these other networks. So it's very hard to get a real and full picture. But definitely we are using, first of all, third-party tools, mainly Google Analytics, to get all the data in one place and to really analyze it from that perspective as well. And in the end of the day, there should be one source of truth for every business. And what we do is we usually take and create this dashboard that have all the media spend from all different channels, that we can see all the data. But then again, in the end, we combine it, and we see exactly how much we spend for each platform, and we see how much dollars we got in revenue. And first of all, the overall should be positive, right? Like this is the main thing. Like if we want to do it very simple. So if your overall is positive, so you're in a good place, and then you need to figure out how to attribute between the different channels. And obviously it gets more complicated when you get more channels.
Yes.
And then you really need to apply some sort of logic to it. There's many attribution models, that you can choose whichever is good for your business. And the more channels you have, the more complicated it gets, right?
Yes. But look, and I think the thing is though, is most businesses, once they hit a certain point, whether they're even going cross-channel, are going to end up cross-channel, right? And
For sure.
and that's where I agree with exactly what you said. You have, at the end of the day, we spent X, we made Y, right?
Yeah.
Across all of those. The question is in the customer journey now, how do you, and I don't know what the answer is. I've been listening and researching and hearing different, perspectives on this,
Yeah.
to apply different values to different points using time decay and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there, first of all, there's only so many things that you can actually see, right? If they go cross device, you just can't even see that, right? With Facebook locking down, their tracking and stuff, again, that's going to make things more difficult. So with clients, and when I say clients, also for our listeners here who fire up a pay-per-click campaign, you're saying that you want to see, with pay-per-click and AdWords in particular, you're looking for a positive ROAS.
Well, look, referring to your comment before, if I can run a campaign on a negative ROAS and still make money because I know I have the positive LTV and a good LTV, so definitely it puts you in a whole different place.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is for sure. But again, like for if we focus on the e-commerce businesses that are now in the fast growth stage, first of all, they don't have a lot of money to burn. So this is one thing, right? They're either bootstraps or they're funded, but they don't have a lot of capital. So they really need to see this fast return. So for that specific stage, so yes, I would definitely look for the fastest way to ROAS. If it's Google or Facebook, or if it's these keywords or that type of audience, but we will definitely do a lot of different tests and work with our methods and with a lot of, again, like I said it before, but I'm going back to it now, especially since there is a big change in the digital marketing world, and the tracking is gonna be impacted. So we really need to, again, go back to the basics and to figure out who's the audience, what is the product, right? What is the benefits of the product? What problem am I solving? And really invest the time to investigate there and to create a compelling story.
Yes.
In the end of the day, Google, Facebook, Pinterest, Snapchat, it doesn't really matter. This is the fundamentals, and we really need to go back there, because otherwise, it's not going to work. It's going to be harder to succeed. This is for sure.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and here's the reality: if you don't put in the work, your competitor will, and you're not going to win. And I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm always lecturing. I'm like, guys, hire a good copywriter, learn how to build a compelling funnel. I mean, copywriting is honestly is at the core of success of all this stuff, right? Like, I mean, you got to get that nailed, or it's just not going to work. And then adding on, I guess, the message I have for people is, don't think in terms of single transaction, right? Think in terms of, what am I going to sell to this person over and over and over?
Yes.
And then you can afford to lose money to get a customer. And it's a complete game changer. And not enough people think that way. And, look, this is tough. I mean, as fellow direct response marketers, I mean, this sucks, because I mean, we're used to,
it's counterintuitive for us.
Well, it is. We're like, step by, right? And it's just not that anymore. I look at the buying patterns, I look at the buying behavior, I look at the number of touches now it takes to hit somebody, is key. One of the things, though, I think, and you said this, and I just want to circle back and highlight, because I think it's important. If you are buying media and building traffic off of social or native or any of those platforms, and you have a brand or a product name, it's going to drive search volume. So, and I don't think enough people realize that it will drive search volume.
Yeah, for sure. Because, when you're doing the direct response on Facebook, you're actually building your brand at the same time. Like there is this big divide between the brand and the direct response. And historically, maybe it's true, but I think that now in our days, like the digital marketing is just a mix of so many things. You know, it's the marketing side and the business side, but it's also the data. And everything comes together, right? Like you can't have one without the other. If you're just going to sell something that is not differentiated and you don't tell an interesting story and show it in a compelling way and a compelling design. So again, maybe you can succeed at some level, you know, but you won't be able to break through.
Well, you'll succeed until someone comes in and does it better.
Yeah, and just tells a better story.
Tells a better story, right? You know, and
or create a nicer looking, you know, brands or ads. So.
Yep, that's it. That's absolutely it. So normally, that's funny. Normally I shoot for half hour to 45 minutes. We're already at 50 minutes here because I could talk about this all. I love these conversations.
Fun, man. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, especially when I love talking to people like you, especially who don't just work with a single business, right? Because you get perspective across multiple businesses, and that's why I like having agency guys come on here as well, because we always have great conversations. So that being said, we need to wrap it up, but before we do, how can people connect with you? Where can they find more about you?
Sure. So first of all, you can find our website. It's mediaflows.com and connect us there. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, Guy Rozman on LinkedIn. Search for me, let's hook up, let's connect, let's talk. If you want to talk digital marketing, if you need help with your business, if you know e-commerce and you want to grow and you need some help and you can figure out what's going on with Facebook right now and with Apple and what do you need to do. So definitely let's connect and let's talk and let's grow your business together. That's awesome. And I would love to get into that conversation of how the Facebook stuff's going to affect. Maybe we'll do this again and get into that, because that's for sure. That's a whole other conversation that is going to take attribution and make it even more difficult in many cases. So no doubt. Well, Guy, thank you so much for taking part today and sharing your wisdom. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much, and the best of luck. Fantastic. All right. And now for our listeners, look, I mean, we went into some deep stuff here, and that's what I try and do on this podcast. It's not the high level sort of fluff, and it's what's working. And today was a fantastic conversation, and I hope we've given you some perspective into how to think about pay-per-click and how to approach it, and the different tactics and strategies you can take with it, and know that there isn't just one right way. What works for one person may be different for the next person, and also understanding how it applies to your entire marketing mix is very, very important. So look, guys, I hope you learned something here today. And as per usual, if you liked what you heard, please just leave me a rating, leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the little like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I got lots of good stuff going on there. And if you need help with some keyword research, head over to ideabot.ai. That's a fantastic tool I created that can really help with keyword research. And on that note, this show is a wrap, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to another info-packed episode of the Project Ignite podcast with Derek Gale.
Any links mentioned, along with an entire transcript of this episode, can be found at projectignite.com/podcast.
And to make sure you never miss another episode, go to iTunes or SoundCloud now and subscribe.